That's why when people say, Monique, when you going to stop with Tyler and Oprah? I'm not. Just so we clear, I'm not. Because we've gotten so used to letting it go and moving on. Well, where does that come from? Let it go. That dates all the way back to just don't say nothing. Just keep moving on. And that's why we continue to be treated the way that we get treated. So for me, my babies, I won't let go and I won't move on from that. Doesn't mean I'm bitter. I'm not angry. And I love my brother and sister or my sister and sister. Whatever day Tyler chooses, whichever way he goes, I love all of them. However, wrong is wrong and right is right. And until we start standing on what is right, we will continue to be treated wrong. That's just my humble opinion. Though I understand where you may be coming from, we don't do that at our Nick's house. We don't do that. So, and that's still my brother. Let me be very clear, y'all. For folks that I've had disagreements with, public disagreements with, I still love those people. I still love them. And I'm not the one that, because I've had a situation with somebody, that you can then attack them. I don't do it like that, y'all. And I understand where you're coming from. However, I don't do it like that. Because if you've not had a situation with that person directly, you can't, I don't play jump on, pile on. That situation was my situation. And I appreciate you saying, I'm Team Monique. Be Team Us. No separation. Be Team Us. And I think more if our community could come together.
Her choice to keep naming Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey is not a casual act of grievance. It is a refusal. It is a rejection of the ritual we have all been conditioned to perform. When wronged, when exploited, when diminished, we are told to let it go, keep quiet, move forward. That script is ancient, baked into the fabric of this country's survival strategies for Black people, survival at the cost of silence. She is saying no. She is saying the silence has cost too much already. To understand the force of her stand, we have to first unpack the command that echoes so loudly in our communities: move on. The culture of letting go did not emerge from nowhere. It is born out of centuries of necessity. For generations, survival for Black folks in America often meant swallowing injustice in order to live another day. You kept your head down in the face of insult. You endured humiliation in the workplace. You accepted systemic exclusion without naming it, because to speak was to risk everything. To speak was to invite punishment. That instinct over time becomes habit. A reflex passed down from parent to child, neighbor to neighbor. You tell your son not to talk back to the officer. You tell your daughter not to make waves at the job. You tell yourself that peace is found in pretending you have not been wronged. And so the practice of swallowing becomes a ritual of survival. Monique is refusing that ritual. She understands where it comes from. She does not deny the wisdom of ancestors who had to endure what they endured. But she also recognizes the poison embedded in silence. To let go is to legitimize the harm. To move on without acknowledgement is to endorse the cycle of exploitation. What makes her stand especially charged is the fact that her grievance is not with anonymous figures of power hidden behind corporations or faceless institutions. Her pain comes from people who are framed as family within the culture. Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey. These are names spoken with reverence in Black households, names associated with achievement against odds, names tied to representation and cultural uplift. When harm comes from family, it cuts differently. It confuses the categories of love and loyalty. You are asked to hold affection in one hand and accountability in the other, and both weigh heavy. Monique insists on doing both at once. She affirms her love. She names Perry and Winfrey as kin. She refuses the impulse to cancel, to dehumanize, to erase. But she also insists that kinship cannot be a shield against accountability. There is a courage in that insistence. Too often we equate love with silence. We assume that to love someone means to cover their sins, to shield them from criticism, to protect their reputation at the expense of truth. Monique flips that equation. For her, love is not the absence of accountability, it is the presence of it. Love means standing in front of someone and naming the harm plainly, because you believe they are capable of doing better, because you refuse to abandon the possibility of repair. Oprah and Perry are not just individuals, they are institutions. They represent the peak of black success in a media landscape that has historically excluded us. Their names carry not just personal weight, but symbolic power. They are held up as proof that the system can be bent, that doors can be opened, that dreams can be realized. To challenge them is to challenge more than their decisions, is to disrupt the narrative that has been carefully constructed around them. It is to expose cracks in the mythology of representation. If these paragons of black success can exploit, can silence, can harm, then what does that say about the promises of making it? That is why so many insist that Monique move on. Her refusal unsettles the dream. It reminds us that representation at the top does not automatically equal justice at the bottom. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that power, even in black hands, can replicate the same patterns of domination it once resisted. There is a word often used to discipline women who refuse silence. Bitter is a word that carries a sneer. It suggests that your pain is illegitimate, that your refusal to forgive is evidence of your personal flaw rather than systemic failure. To be bitter is to be dismissed. To be bitter is to be made into a caricature of complaint. And Monique knows this weapon. She feels its sting, and still she refuses to bow to it. She insists that refusing to let go does not equal bitterness. Refusal can come from love. Refusal can come from hope. Refusal can come from a desire to build a community where wrong is named and right is insisted upon. In doing so, she reclaims a space for black women to tell their truth without being reduced to stereotypes of anger or resentment. She insists on the possibility of righteous persistence, of principled refusal. Another trap often laid for those who speak truth to power is the reduction of their struggle to a personal dispute. When someone challenges a powerful figure, critics rush to paint it as a private squabble, a clash of egos, a personal vendetta. The political and structural dimensions get erased. And Monique resists that erasure. She names her situation as part of a larger pattern. She refuses to isolate herself as the singular victim. She speaks not only for herself, but for the countless others who have been told to swallow mistreatment in silence. She reframes the personal as collective. Her wound becomes a mirror reflecting the wounds of many. One of the most striking aspects of Monique's position is her refusal to turn accountability into dehumanization. She is not calling for the destruction of Perry or Winfrey. She is not weaponizing her platform to invite attacks. She is careful to distinguish between her experience and the way others might relate to them. This distinction matters. In a culture addicted to cancellation, where public accountability often collapses into collective punishment, her approach is radical. She insists that people can be loved and critiqued at once. She insists that wrong can be named without stripping away humanity. This is not softness. This is rigor. It requires discipline to hold both truths in tension, that someone has caused harm and that they are still your kin, that they are worthy of love and also in need of correction, that you will not abandon them, but you will not excuse them either. What she ultimately asks of her audience is not blind allegiance to her side, but a deeper form of solidarity. She does not want fans declaring themselves Team Monique against Team Oprah or Team Tyler. She wants people to be Team Us. She calls for unity that transcends the binary of celebrity feuds. This is where her vision broadens into something transformative. The demand for Team Us is a demand to reorient the conversation away from individuals and toward community. It is a reminder that harm within the family weakens the entire family. That accountability is not about revenge, but about strengthening the bonds that hold us.